Hello, everyone. We're excited to have you here with us today as we chat about Cayosoft's comprehensive identity governance and administration solutions. I'm Justin. I work alongside the Microsoft experts here at Cayosoft and just need to quickly run us through some housekeeping items before we get to the real reason you're here today. So first off, your microphones are muted, but please don't let that stop you from asking questions today. Now, depending on how you joined, whether that was in browser or through an app, you're going to see a question and or chat section on your screen. Drop your questions in there and we will keep an eye on that for you. If we happen to not cover your question, don't worry, we will follow up with you on that individually. I'd also like to point out that we do have a few data sheets and other supporting assets in the handout section for this event. So feel free to check those out, download, and share with your team. Now we have with us today Chad Nichols, who is one of our great systems engineers. You can see his picture here on this first slide. But before we get started, we'll head over to the next slide. And if everyone could take a quick moment to follow us on social media, that would be great. You'll see here we've provided some QR codes for all of your favorite social channels. So instead of trying to search for us, you can conveniently just scan these codes with your phone camera and they'll take you directly to our pages. And there you can follow, stay connected, keep up to date on the latest and greatest information and events just like this one. We do have a lot of events lined up throughout the year, so stay tuned, check in with our social, and you will be up to date on everything that's going on. So that takes care of that, and now I will pass it over to Chad. Welcome, Chad.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. So go ahead to the next one. I'm going to go through a brief demo today. As always, if you guys want a more targeted demo, please reach out and Justin will go over all that kind of information at the end. But just a high-level overview, we're going to go over automated user provisioning and deprovisioning, kind of semi-automated because I'm actually going to focus on the website today. And then I'll kind of briefly overview how we can also do that fully automated through your HR system. How we use rules, roles, to control administrative tasks. The fact that we used granular least privilege delegation, you'll see that as well through the web, and it's nice when you actually see it. It's very easy to understand. How we can help with governance and audits and things of that nature with automation, right? So automating group membership, assignment, approvals, making sure that the right folks are in the right groups, all those things to kind of help with that kind of governance, and also time-based access and role-based controls. So we'll go over that as well, and hopefully give you guys a good kind of starting place understanding of where we sit. All right, so go ahead and switch over to my screen, and this is my demo environment. Just at a high level, Cayosoft has two softwares that we sell. The first being Administrator, and this is what we're talking about today. This is really how we help with identity governance and administration, lifecycle, controls, and really to help make sure that when users are provisioned and deprovisioned, when groups are managed, it's all in a real easy to maintain and secure manner. Whether you're doing this with the web interface here, you doing more of a I would say semi-automatic way. It's kind of manual, but there's a lot of background processes, right? Or you're using our true fully automated rules. Whichever that happens to be, that's Administrator, really your day-to-day and your automation. And then our other product, of course, is Guardian, and that is change monitoring, recovery, full force recovery, and everything to kind of round out the full suite. And that makes up our management and protection suite. So let's talk about Administrator first, and this is really the main topic of today, right? So this is the web interface that you see before you. There's two pieces to administrator, the first being the web interface here. And this is really where you set up all delegation. Give folks the access to do the things they need to do on a day-to-day basis. It's how we control the identity lifecycle with all of the things that we have within the tool where we can help with governance. And then the other piece to administrator is the configuration console, and this is where you set up everything. So this is where you perform delegation. This is where you set up our dynamic group feature, which we'll go over in a little while. Automation rules, so fully automated user provisioning and deprovisioning, audits, things of that nature. So let's talk about delegation. Really, what you want to do is kind of use the least privileged model. This user here is my administrative user. He sees everything. He does everything. Can do everything. But an true end user, whether that happens to be an actual end user, where administrative secretary or some other person in the company, or an IT staff, help desk, or someone on the support side, you don't want them to have the ability to be able to do everything, right? So you want to really limit things that they can do based on their role. Another thing to point out with our delegation model, you do the delegation through the tool itself. You don't do anything through native tools, and that really helps give you another way to reduce your threat surface. If Johnny's account gets compromised by a bad actor, and the only thing he's a member of is domain users, and he has no roles in Azure, it's really limited with what the bad actor can do with that account. So being able to reduce that threat surface is very important. What you really want to do is set up the delegation based on what we call virtual administrative units. So these are admin units that you set up within the tool that gives you your scope of delegation. This can be based on OU. Here's an example of that. So all of these users are in the Columbus OU, and so if I do a search, you'll see that they're all in the same OU. We can also do it via attribute, but a lot of folks that have had AD for years, they like their OU structure. They put a lot of work into that, and so that's really an easy way to kind of do that delegation. The nice thing is, though, because we're a fully hybrid-aware product, when you do your delegation, even though these are Active Directory users, you really are also giving the person that's doing these duties the ability to not only perform on-prem actions, but also cloud actions, and all from a single pane of glass. So they don't have to go to multiple interfaces to do the work. So if you notice here on the right-hand side under the actions section, I can do Active Directory specific type of things. So new user for AD, but I can also do Exchange type of activities, new mailboxes, 365, sign out of sessions, MFA, licensing, Teams policies, Teams voice, which is becoming very popular as folks migrate from physical phones over to Teams voice for a phone. So as you manage these things, you have the one single pane of glass to be able to look and be able to manage groups, contacts, users, and the different things, teams as well, that we help manage from our software, and all in a single pane of glass, one look and feel for everyone. Once you've got things set up, now it's time to decide, okay, these groups of folks have access to these areas and can do these certain tasks based on their specific duties, right? So truly a role in privilege-based access, but again, you do it within the tool. So for example, this is a Columbus help desk user for me. He only has access to be able to see the Columbus unit, and he only has access to users and groups here. So he can't do anything with contacts. He can't, he's really limited with what he can do based on what I've given him access to do through the tool. And for 365, the only thing he can look at is groups. So once you've defined that, And notice on the other side here under actions, he also has a limited subset of actions that he can perform. And again, that's based on his roles. And it really depends on what type of role or what privileges that you've assigned to a specific group of individuals on what they see. Here's an example of another user. This is an engineering manager user. He has access to a different area, engineering, and I've actually added the ability for him to see teams. He can't create teams or delete teams, but he can look at the properties and the membership. Just, again, limiting exposure to risk, making sure that governance is in place. So the person doing these tasks really only has the ability to see and do what they're supposed to. Assigning this is a very easy process. You base your virtual administrative unit, which you create through a wizard. In this case, I'm limiting it to that users in Columbus. You see that very clearly here. And then I decide what individuals or groups of individuals I want to have access. And then from there, it's really just picking the scope that you want them to see and do. And it's really super simple to do this. So you check the users, the administrative units, the queries, and the actions that you want them to be able to perform. So very, very easy to set up. So let's talk about provisioning. I want to show you the provisioning process here in the web. And the other thing this is going to allow me to do while I show you this is show you some of the rules that we can put in place that really helps drive governance, spelling, standards, and tries to enforce and make sure that when things are put into AD or in the cloud or both, that the data is as pristine as possible. We're all humans, we all make mistakes, we make spelling errors. So, we try to help eliminate that as much as possible through controls that we can put into place into the software, and I'll show you that as well here momentarily, how easy that is to do. So here's the example of a new user creation form. For those of us, or for those of you that are familiar with users and computers, this should look pretty familiar. We did try to kind of model it after that to make it, kind of seamless transition from the way Microsoft does it to the way we do it. So let's start creating an account. There are different ways that we can help control the content that's put in the web forms. Just at a high level, you can leave things read-write. You can make them read-only. You can hide them. You can make them required. In this case, with this particular field, I've put a regex mask behind the scenes to make sure that, hey, when I do the last name, it's capital or capital, lowercase capital, to make sure that, I'm doing a good format on the last name, because when this is generated for the users in AD, I want things to be consistent. That's just the way I am. But really, if you have bad data that goes into AD, any of the other controls you put into place and all reporting and things that you have to run on AD after the fact are going to be lacking, right? Because if you have somebody with the wrong spelling or a department spelled wrong or description, all those types of things, it really can hamper your process later on. So you want to keep the data as pristine as possible. Once I fix my format here, now things are good and this is happy. Notice also it's generated my account information for me automatically. So we have user naming generation rules within the product that you can set up to match your corporate standards, whatever those are. If it's the same standard across the entire organization, that's great. You can do that very easily. If it's a different standard based on, a location or a department or whatever that happens to be, that's okay too, because we can generate different naming standards for each individual area if needed. So that is there. Because we are hybrid, We do allow the opportunity, and we support both user-based and group-based to do licensing for Azure /O365. And so as part of the process here, because I've selected Exchange Remote, now it opens me up to having licenses that I can assign. Here is the kind of legacy way to do that. Notice I've made this particular field read-only and selected it, so I can't unselect it as an end user. I've left some of this to where I can make changes. And I've also even hidden a couple of license types that I have, so my E3 and E5. Another good way to do this, though, is what we call license profiles. So if you have a specific set of licenses for a specific type of user, set that up in the automation and configuration console, give this to the end user doing this task, and that's all I have to do. Everything else is set up for me. I can't change anything, and it makes things very consistent. Again, trying to help make sure that we're compliant and everything in the from a governance standpoint is unique and followed. Here's an example of where I've done some dynamic generation of the description. So I've added the who's created the person, time and date. Here's an example of a way we can help with spelling drop-down lists. You can use those very easily within the tool to help guide folks and make sure that when the different options are selected, that spelling errors are at a minimum or even potentially eliminated. I've also, based on my location here, automatically set the address, right? So again, helping with that data integrity. Here's an example of required fields that I mentioned a moment ago. So until I fill these in, I can't go further and complete this. And on this particular form, you can actually add up to 20 different attributes from AD, map those really to any attribute that exists, and then give it a friendly description. So, if this were extension attribute 10, an HR person would be like, I don't even know what that means, but they know what employee number is, right? So you make it very, very repeatable and easy for the folks that are doing these tasks, just to really help them out. Finally, we do also have available within the product what's called virtual attributes. These are ones that are defined by you. They can really be anything. Drop-down list, check boxes, free-form text, whatever you need. And you can define up to 20 of these and add them to this. So maybe there's sensitive data that you don't want to have in AD because generally speaking, if you have access to AD users' computers, you can see that data and it's not super secure from inside the company. Or maybe you've run out of extension attributes. Whatever the reason, you can extend the software to add extra data to be maintained for you, and we'll keep that just in the software. When we do the software installation, we don't do any schema extensions or anything that's going to be destructive to AD. We leave things the way you have it, and we try to match the software to your processes. The software does run on top of a service, which allows me as an end user here, or any automation rules that might run from the other console, to continue work, right? So I don't have to wait for user B to be done for me to be able to go to the next task, and they don't have to wait for me and all of those things, right? So the back-end service takes care of making the changes. And also every change that we make, or every basically read or write operation, is a fresh call to the end system, whether that's AD or the cloud or both. So we're always grabbing the latest data. We're always writing immediately as well. So that keeps things very pristine. For provisioning, it is a full end-to-end provisioning process if you would like to do that way. So not just doing the Active Directory user account, but also setting the remote mailbox attributes for on-prem Exchange to let the on-prem know that, hey, this is a cloud mailbox, not an on-prem mailbox. Pre-create the Office account. That way, we can then immediately set licensing Microsoft can start the backend processes for Exchange, for Teams, for all those things that we don't control. And it just allows the user to be ready quicker. When we do this, we set this user with the immutable ID preset, and that way when AD Connect runs the synchronization, it will map the on-prem user with the cloud user, and so you don't have to worry about duplicates in the cloud. So it is a truly full end-to-end process. If you have an HR system and you can get access to a export through a CSV file, or maybe a database, whether SQL or Oracle, you can fully automate this as well. And that's literally just setting it up with the same type of rules that you saw with the web. So creating the users, updating the address information, the cloud account, licensing, the remote mailbox. And then finally, because it's a fully automated runbook, where do I put the users in AD? What OU, right, at the end of the process? So you basically decide how often do I want this run, set a schedule for it to run on a daily basis or whatever that happens to be for your company. And then it will just pick up users, provision them automatically behind the scenes, and completely really take the human out of the equation, right? So if you have a Workday or an ADP or something like that in the back end, we can ingest the CSV file, or if those systems write to a database, we can ingest that data as well. So it makes it very automatic. So user provisioning is really good, right? So you want to make sure that that's done well, and that when users are provisioned, they're provisioned fully, they're provisioned accurately. I actually appreciate our deprovisioning tool more. Reason being, because I have a security conscious mind. So when a user is leaving the company, it may be on their own, or it may be against their will, right? You never know the situation. So you want to have a full deprovisioning process that will handle all of the scenarios you need to really completely deprovision a user. If somebody's being let go, you don't want them to do something that might hurt the company or them or both. So the more you can have somebody fully deprovisioned, the better. I usually use Clark here to show this because he's typical user account. He has normal information, reports to me, typical contact info. He's a member of a bunch of groups. So let's say that he has decided he's going to retire. There's a couple different ways that you can do this function, and we call this function suspend, because it's not just disabling the user account. It's the full process of deprovisioning a user account. So we didn't want to call it disable because it's really more than that. Through the web, you can do it immediately, which I'm going to do. And you can also do it on a schedule. So, if I know Friday at 5, Clark's leaving, I can do that here. You can also do it through automation rules. So that way, again, if you have that CSV file or database, you can leverage from your HR source, point to that. As users have their term dates, it will automatically deprovision them via your rules. And as far as the rules go, so here's what I mean by full deprovision. So here's the AD piece. That's just one part. That does strip the attribute information, moves it to my deprovisioned OU. If I have a process where at the end of 90 days, things are automatically cleaned up, that's fine, we can support that. Some customers have a cleanup process, some customers keep AD accounts forever. It doesn't matter. Whatever you guys need to do, you can do that. But where we go, the next step is the office side, right? So immediately sign them out of their sessions, convert the mailbox to a shared mailbox, which allows me to then get the license back. Give the access to the manager to have access to OneDrive, to email, out of office, litigation hold, all those things really that you do on the cloud side in the hybrid world to really make this a complete deprovision. And that's all configurable, right? So you don't have to do all that, but a lot of our customers do because it's just a great way to make it a complete deprovision, because now if you look at Clark again, his description's been updated, he's suspended, all of his other information has been removed, including all his groups, so he's lost access to everything, both on-prem and the cloud, right? So he's out of your Teams, he's out of the OneDrive. My manager now has access to my OneDrive, my email, all those things, and it's all automated. Do you want to mention, though, that there's going to be times, and I'm sure you've seen this, where, hey, Clark, maybe went on an extended leave, and now he's coming back. Maybe he went somewhere else, decided that he doesn't like that place, and he wants to come back to this company again. Maybe I just clicked the wrong person. We all make mistakes. So we do have a way to reverse the process. As part of the suspend process, we store the information that occurs during the suspend, and that allows us to undo the suspend. So if you do need to reverse this for whatever reason, you can do it immediately. Again, you can do it on a schedule. And because we've stored what happens during the suspend process, we use that to literally reverse everything that occurred. So now all of the Office stuff has been undone, all of the AD stuff has been undone. Notice he's back in the same location. If I look at his properties, he's been restored to his original information, all of his groups. So literally the only thing I'd have to do with him now is reset his password, and he's back in. So a true reversal of that suspend process. I did want to show you just real quick the way we do those drop-down lists and things. Again, like the provisioning process, or sorry, the delegation process, we have what we call attribute policy to control those things. And like, for example, here is the way that I create the drop-down list. So I create a policy for the department attribute, and here's my list of departments that are possible. Here's my default for Columbus because it's in operations. So very easy to make these fields, whether you want to make them required, read only, hide them, and you can really customize these. And it's almost literally every individual attribute for the web forms throughout the entire web interface. So very, very, very configurable. All right, so we've kind of talked about provisioning and deprovisioning. That's really our identity lifecycle, right? With governance controls based on the policies and things that I've created. So let's talk about access. Most places still do access through groups today, just an easy way to manage that. And we recognize that and want to make that as easy as possible. So we have several different ways that we can help with group management. Probably our most popular way is dynamic groups. What you do with dynamic groups is you pick a existing group that's in AD or the cloud, and we support every group type that's available for Active Directory, and also every group type that exists for the cloud, including Teams. So you can literally use this to manage your Teams membership. You define the query criteria for the group very easily. We support all of the group membership types, and also have some canned rules here, like employee under manager, if I want to do an organizational type of group, right? So you pick the manager. Do you want the manager in the group? How many levels do you want to include in the group membership for their reports? And we can also leverage database and text file for this too. So the information around the group membership doesn't even have to exist in AD. So again, if you have maybe some kind of an HR database, and that HR database has sensitive data you don't want in Active Directory, I can still leverage direct access to that database to populate groups, and I'm not exposing anyone or any private information in AD. To set up the queries, very simple. We have a query builder that we provide. You add whatever conditions you need, select the attributes. This is very similar to PowerShell. So we have all the PowerShell switches here. And you just build this out, group these together, do all of the query building here. And when you're done, it builds your criteria. From a real world business case, let's say my company has a couple locations for engineering, Atlanta and Columbus, like I have set up here. The user today is in Atlanta and they're transferring to Columbus. Right now, they're going to be in this group because they meet this criteria. They're in Department of Engineering in Atlanta. Once their Active Directory user account's been updated with the new city, the next time this role runs, because they no longer meet this criteria, they'll be removed from this group and they'll be automatically added to this group because now they meet this criteria. So now are gone the days of someone having to put in a help desk ticket for people to be added to new groups just because they have a new role or they've moved to a new location, right? So you really can reduce the amount of tickets that the help desk gets for these types of activities because it's all done behind the scenes. More importantly, if you have somebody that's been around for a long time, and I'm sure you've probably seen this, they could be a member of tons of groups that they no longer need. Because usually what happens is you'll get a ticket that says, hey, now I need to be added to this group. And the one that, hey, no, I no longer need to be in this group is never done. So people have a lot of groups they no longer need. That's a security issue. It's an experience issue because you got Kerberos ticket bloat. So really, it's just a bad way to do things. And in the past, there's really not been a ton of ways around that. But with this, you get all of that, and it's all managed for you. So you get the people added and people removed automatically. For the cloud, we can also do cloud groups directly from the product. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here because I've already covered it with AD, but just know that what you get with us if you decide to manage cloud groups with our tool, because we understand hybrid, you can directly access AD attributes for any user account to populate the cloud group with those users. You do not need to update your synchronization rules to add extra attributes and sync those to the cloud like you do with Microsoft's dynamic group feature, right? If it doesn't exist there, you can't access it. So with this, you can directly query users directly from AD to populate cloud groups. Combination of both, includes, excludes, and then like this is an example of a group that has both AD users that are synchronized and cloud only users. So very, very easy to set up. And you can also do database as your source of authority as well. You can't do every single group automatically, and we understand that because there's going to be cases where groups have to have approval. For example, I got this set up for my Columbus sales group that, hey, if you're in this group, if you want to be in this group, sorry, it requires approval. Set this up very easy. You basically, the group scope can be one or more groups based on a query, and you can also define eligible members. So if this is a sales group and somebody asks to be a member of this group that's in a different department, they'll just get a message that says, sorry, you don't meet the eligibility requirements for the group, and you don't even have to go through the approval process. So it really kind of helps streamline the whole thing. If you meet the group membership and the criteria requirements, what do you want to do with the group? We have the ability to do self-service join requests, which I'll show you here in a moment. Also, you can require group approval, and it's a completely streamlined process with automated emails and everything. You can do group owners. If you have that defined in AD or in the cloud, no problem, easy to do, one checkbox. But you don't have to use the owners. You can specify others to do the group approval request. So it really gives you some flexibility on how to set this up. And again, for this, you can do all group types through AD, and we also support this for the cloud. So again, totally hybrid, help manage the access around cloud groups and on-prem groups. And then finally, there's going to be a time where maybe you have a requirement, like where I used to work. Every time a new office location spun up, there were a specific set of groups we had to create for support and local folks, DLs, things like that. And there was the same for every single site. So our family group feature allows you to specify a naming convention and then criteria around when a group should, a person should be added to a group. And I've set this up exactly like where I used to work. So physical delivery office name. Let's say nobody's in Columbus today. Tomorrow, AD has now a new person that has the physical delivery office name of Columbus. Now, this person meets the criteria of this rule. The group doesn't exist yet, so it's going to create the group with my naming convention and then put that user in the group. And it's going to then maintain the membership of that group from then on. The big difference between dynamic groups and family groups, with dynamic groups, you point to your existing groups and put criteria around the membership, and it keeps them up to date from that point on. With family groups, it will actually create the group for you, populate it, and then maintain it. So just an extra way to kind of help with that. Just to show you guys the approval process, I will go over here to the cloud. I have a group already set up for this, my Sales Columbus group. This is an example of like a help desk person being called. So Dolores has called into the help desk. She said, hey, I want to be a member of this group. And this is the reason I need to be a member. And one other thing too while I'm here. We also support time-based group membership. So if you have the need for someone, maybe for change control purposes, or a consultant is coming in to do temporary work, I can actually set a start and end on the group membership for each individual user that goes into the group. Or you can batch it for the entire group. But this gives you a lot of flexibility because I can do this after a certain period of time or on a specific time and date for both the start and the stop. So very, very flexible. Once I go and to update this group, because I have this, that it requires approval, now I get this pop-up. Now the person filling this out just needs to give the reason that the person wants to be in the group. That could be a ticket number, it could be a true explanation. It really depends upon the customer. Now that I say okay, the only thing that happens now is the group update has been queued. Nothing's happened with the group yet. The approvers of the group, whether that's one or more people, will get an email saying, hey, here is a new approval request for this group. So now the approver simply comes into the tool, and then they'll see a pop-up that's displayed that will give them the information they need to make the decision. Because, hey, I'm in IT, I'm not in sales, I don't know who should be in the salesperson group, the sales approver does. So now it takes that burden off of IT, off of the help desk, and really puts it on the people who should have it, right? Makes it very repeatable, very streamlined. So now here's my group, here's the person that did the request, the comment that they typed in, and then here's a list of the one or more users that want to be added. And now as the approver, I can either approve or reject. I think you know what I'm going to do based on my comment. If I do an approval, they're added to the group immediately. If I do a rejection, which I'm going to do for Dolores, they're never added to the group. So I have not broken any security rules or have not opened up anyone to any risk. Regardless of the outcome, the original requester will get an email back letting them know the status of the request. So they'll see that here. Here's my update. And now I know that Dolores was rejected. Here's the reason why. So very, very easy and fully automated, honestly. That leads me to a next kind of special area within the tool that we have. This is the self-service area. This is all about end user empowerment. Now, end user could be a true end user. It could be an IT staff. It could be a manager. It's really depends on the scenario. But from this location, all of these are built in as pre-built queries. So I go to my AD groups. This person sees nothing because this person doesn't own any groups in AD. They're not the manager of groups. If I go to my administrative user here and go to the same selection, I see the list of groups that I'm the owner of an AD. So it's a really great way to help end users, give them a little extra permissions, responsibilities to do some things on their own. And because you can do the delegation that we have in the tool to only limit them to what not only they can see, but what they can do, they don't necessarily have to have all of these actions. So maybe this person with my AD groups, I only want them to be able to modify membership, and that's it. So you really limit them both what they see and what they could do, even in the self-service where those queries are already set up. And just to go down the list here, my AD memberships, users that report to me. If you're using expiring accounts, a great way for managers to be able to extend the expiration date, right? And that's both for on-prem and the clouds. So for a user, I mentioned earlier we could do a self-service join. So we can publish groups to where a person can join them on their own. And you do that through this special self-service location. So now I can go to join groups as an end user, discover groups. The person is only going to see groups that listed here that I've made as self-join within the tool, and only the ones they're not already a member of. So once I add myself to this, basically it's going to be empty because there's no more groups available. This group actually doesn't even require any kind of approval because it's just a DL. So now as an end user, I can come in here, I can join the group. Now I'm in the group, and if I no longer want to get those emails, I can easily leave the group. Like you saw a minute ago with the approval process, you can also require approval on that. It's literally the same process you saw a minute ago, the only exception being that the email will come from an end user as opposed to a help desk user. So truly, you can let end users do some of this on their own. One last thing I want to show you is our group attestation and or auditing feature. Again, very automated. When you are assigned a specific task to do, whether that's an approval, whether that's a certification or anything thereof, that this My Pending Tasks location in self-service is where that will go. Even though you get an email, maybe you delete the email by accident, you're going to always have a place that you can go to see what you still need to do. Certification audit is very straightforward. If I go to do that, there's a couple of different things I can do. I can let the user or the certifier decide if they want to keep or remove the group. Also, here I can make sure that the group members are accurate. And as part of the process, if you need to remove someone from the group, you can do that. Where I used to work, it was all manual process, screenshots. So if I were to remove John Helpdesk from this group, for example, before I did my screenshot, the auditors would not know that I removed them from the group. With our tool, you will, because you will have a true audit of the entire event. And then to make it completely basically meet audit requirements, whether that's SOX or HIPAA or whatever that happens to be in your individual instance, you can make the certification statement your own to make the lawyers and the auditors happy. And now once I say agree and I click agree, now I have an HTML document with all of the things that I went through, the steps that I can give to auditors, to management, and let them know that, hey, yes, I looked at this and I did my due diligence and it's done. One thing I want to call out with the certification that's kind of cool is with the group certifications, you can do AD groups, you can do office groups, and you can do teams. And with teams, this is really nice because you can specify access requirements to filter on the teams. So maybe there are some teams that I want to make sure, if I want to make sure that all my teams stay active, I could set this up to say, hey, if nobody's accessed files or done any posts for more than 90 days, have the owner of these teams do some verification that this is still needed. So it's a really great way to clean up teams that are no longer needed, because as you probably know, teams can become the wild, wild west, to say the least. But this is a really good tool to help with that. Last thing I wanted to kind of hit with this, we do have full auditing in the tool. So you do see everything that occurs. So for instance, if I want to take a look at Clark here, like I said a minute ago, I use him for the suspend and unsuspend all the time. So if I look at his change history, you're going to see all of the times that has occurred. So if the user or group or contact or computer has been managed within the tool, you're going to see the changes to those objects within the tool, including all the way down to the attributes that are updated. You also get a view into those users that manage objects. So my help desk user here, he obviously, you saw a minute ago, he's allowed to do certain things. And so now I can look at the history of management things that he's done over time to different objects. So here's my the email opt-in and opt-out, the approver request for the Sales Columbus, where I created the Stan Smith account. So everything that this person's done over time, because you never know from a troubleshooting standpoint which direction you're going to have to come, right? So you want to make sure that you can hit it from the object that's managed, then also the folks that manage objects. For the automation rules, they have their own execution history and reporting that you can use with those. So that makes it very, very robust with auditing the changes within the tool. Last but not least, I do want to mention just briefly our other product, Guardian. So Guardian is basically monitors in real time changes to AD, changes to O365 and Azure. Pulls those in a very easy to use interface, and you see literally every attribute change that occurs on those objects, both on-prem and in the cloud. For instance, here's John. If I look at the properties of this, notice here's where he was removed as a member of that group. Also see the group change, because technically with a group, it's changing the object, the attribute on the group itself, the members, and then also on the user. So you see both sides of that equation. Very easy to see those changes that occur maybe in the cloud. So like on my Azure changes, the cloud icon, very easy to see that. It looks like Stan was synchronized from my AD Connect server. So here's the properties that were synchronized. See all that detail, right? So this is all the stuff that was updated via Microsoft Connect. For those users that have Exchange Online email, you're going to see when mailboxes are provisioned, when the mailboxes are moved to different locations, Microsoft. Exchange Online, we see tenant level settings, and we see individual user mailbox settings. You also see those things for Microsoft Teams. So if somebody makes a change to a team or properties, creates a new team, deletes a team, changes team members, all of those types of things, you're going to see that here as well. So we're trying to give you a really good view into basically all things that change. I have a group that I do with Dynamic, and it's my engineering Atlanta group. And this should have run while we were doing this, because I removed some of the members so I'd see a change. So here's my update to the group, and here's the members that were added. If anybody had been taken away, it would have showed that too. But what I want to show you though is, because this occurred, you're going to see the same thing in Guardian. So if I go to Guardian, I can look at for my engineering.atlanta group. And so I should see a change here to that group. So here's where my dynamic group updated. Here's the members. We don't require event logs for Guardian. We use those for correlation and data, but we see the changes in real time. So if a bad actor turns off your event log on-prem or in the cloud, you still get to see what happened. The event log is used to correlate data. Where did the change occur from? What domain? Was it on-prem? Was it the cloud? What user made the change? You know, we actually store the actual event information in the tool. So you can also leverage this for forensics, for helping add things to SIEM tools, you know, things like that. Trying to give you the full information. Not everything's going to happen with dynamic groups though. And there's going to still be groups that you manually maintain. And I actually have one of those here. And this is actually an example of what happened to one of our customers that happened to be piloting this functionality, this software. There was an admin that accidentally targeted the wrong group with a PowerShell script, and they did this. This happened to be a group that managed licensing for doctors and nurses. Needless to say, very quickly that became a big issue. They contacted us. We helped them through how easy it is to remediate this. So let's say that Alan called in. I can look at Alan here. Here's his latest change. Here he was removed from this group. Now I can take a look right at this group, look at this change history. Here's the latest change for this group. And now here are all the folks that were removed from the group. Because we've tracked the change, guess what we can do? Undo it. So you can very easily roll back those changes. And now, even those groups that are manually maintained, not dynamically maintained, because you're still going to have those, you can undo and fix things where people accidentally cause issues. We're all human, we all make mistakes, it happens. But being able to recover from that is very, very important. So again, this tool will give you that change logging from on-prem, from the cloud, to give you the ability to roll back those changes, and automatically it'll roll back those changes. So I can fully protect an object, and if something gets changed, have it automatically undone. So it gives you a lot of control over that. And just to mention at a high level, this is also where we can help with full forest recovery. So protecting all of AD if you get a ransomware attack, helping you out of that problem. Not going to go into that because that's out of our topic of discussion today, but wanted to just kind of give you a high level overview of this product. And with that, I am actually going to turn it back over to Justin. And let me get my PowerPoint up here and reshare. And Justin, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Chad. So just to briefly give you an idea or big picture of who Cayosoft is, you know, our IGA solutions or controls are just one of the many things we do. And I'd like to run through some of those other arenas in which we operate. And we sum that up in 3 words: management, monitor, and recover. Starting with management, from simple secure automation of common admin tasks like user provisioning and deprovisioning in order to drive that efficiency and accuracy. Or maybe automating license assignments. Maybe you want to understand how many underused or unassigned licenses you have in order to save some cash. And then moving into monitoring, where we offer real-time alerting for malicious or accidental changes, and then ending with recovery by either rolling back mistakes or changes, or in the unfortunate event of an attack, instantly recovering active directories, which is really changing the game in the realm of recovery with that ability to instantly recover. And while we didn't cover all of this offering today, we want to give you some information in order to check out these other areas and give you a way to ask questions in case you're walking away with thoughts on a solution you weren't really thinking you'd have. So we'll head over to the next slide. If you're looking at this last slide, you'll see some pages you can use to reach out, depending on what you'd like to do. If you want to ask that question, if you want to start a trial or request a personalized demo, you can do that. Actually, if you're ready to move forward with a demo request, you can scan that little QR code near the left side of the screen, and it'll take you directly to the demo request form. Fill that out, and we'll reach back out as soon as possible. I'll give you a moment to jot these links down. And while you're doing that, I did mention earlier that we do have a lot of events throughout the year. Some of those are educational, and then some are more product specific, where we show you just how useful the Cayosoft product series actually is. So be on the lookout for those invitations, or check out our upcoming events on the site. Now, we did try to cover a lot today, and we really strive to keep these short for you. So just a reminder that if we didn't get around to answering your questions, we're going to be following up with you on those individually. So be on the lookout for those responses. With that, thank you so much, Chad. We really appreciate you. And thank you all for joining us. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.